This is a video tutorial on how to knit RAE'S lace. I designed this blanket to welcome a new baby into our family, and the yarn that I chose for this project was Circulose Ann, which is made of 100% mercerized Brazilian virgin cotton. I want to take this opportunity to thank Circulo for sponsoring the yarn in the making of this video tutorial. If you're making the baby blanket as prescribed in my pattern, you will need 2 units of this. In addition, you will need 1 set of knitting needles in size US 7 or 4.5 millimeter. Now the needles need to be circular needles about 40 inches long from tip to tip. That way it will be able to accommodate the full width of the finished blanket. In addition, you will also need a tapestry needle to weave in the ends at the end of the project, as well as a bunch of markers. Let's take a closer look at the markers. You will see that there are 3 distinctive markers. This cute little sheep button marker, this round gold ring here, and then lastly, the hexagon marker. So each one of them identifies different part of the blanket. You will need 2 of the border markers, or in my case, the sheet markers, to identify where the end of the border, the edge is of the blanket. And then the second one, the edge marker, in my case, is the gold ring. You will also need 2 of those for either side of the blanket, of course. And that is to mark out the section between the border and the main body of the blanket. And then lastly, you're going to need quite a few of the main marker. That's how I identify them in the pattern. The main marker. In my case, I am actually not making the full-size baby blanket. I'm doing a shorter version or less wide version, and I have 5 pattern repeats. So you can see here in between these hexagon, that's 1 pattern repeat. So I have 5 of these sections. So I have 4 markers to separate those 5 sections. So you can see here, this is the edge marker, and this is the first installation of the main marker. So in between that, here is the first pattern repeat, and then here's the second one, here's the third one, so on and so forth. If you're making the baby blanket, you will have to repeat that 19 times, which means you will need 18 of these markers. If you can't find 18 of the same thing, which is probably going to be difficult to do, it's fine. So as long those markers are different than your edge markers and your border marker, I think you'll be fine. It's just easier to have these different than the main body ones for easy identification. So now we got that out of the way. Let's begin. First, we're going to do row 1, and we're going to start with the border stitches, which are just 10 knit stitches. However, in the pattern, I have written slip 1, knit 9. The reason for that is because I wanted the pattern or the end result to have like these nubby texture at the end. So if you prefer to slip your first stitch another way to create a chain, that's fine. If you don't want to bother with slipping anything and just knit the first 10 stitches, that's fine too. Whatever you decide at this point, just keep it consistent. So here we go. Slip 1, and the way we slip the edge stitch, if you're following my pattern exactly as written, we slip by inserting the needle purlwise with yarn in the back of the work and move the first stitch from the left needle to the right. So we have just slipped that first stitch over. And then the second part of that instruction is to knit 9 stitches. And we get to the border marker. Of course, if you haven't done so already, this is where you would put in your border marker, and the pattern is abbreviated BM. Slip that, and then the next part of the pattern says to knit 2 together. So I'm going to knit the next 2 stitches together, followed by a yarn over, which is simply moving the working yarn to the front of the work. And then you will install the edge marker, abbreviated by EM. And now we're going to start the pattern repeat. And that begins with a knit 1. Now, see, I did that on purpose to show you how sloppy that was. Here's my marker. Before the marker, I did a yarn over. But you see how this yarn over here, it's crossing over to the left side of the marker, which may become a problem when you go and work on the second row. So we want to be a little bit careful, be meticulous about that move. So here is that yarn over, and here's the marker, and I'm going to bring that around to do my first knit stitch. Here, that was better illustrated. So let's just take a look to be on the safe side. So that was my knit 2 together, and here's that yarn over, here's the marker, and then that was my knit stitch at the beginning of the next pattern repeat. Let's carry on. Yarn over, slip the SKP is the next instruction. So SKP stands for slip, knit, pass, slip, stitch over, and it's executed like this. Slip the next stitch on your needle knitwise, which means insert the needle into the stitch as if to knit, but don't knit it, and transfer it from left to right needle. That's all that there is to it. Knit the following stitch, and then P is to pass that stitch we have just slipped over the stitch we have just knitted, and that's an SKP. And then a yarn over, and then it says to do that 2 times because that's in the parentheses, so that instruction is to be done twice. So here's the second one. Here is the slip, here is the knit, and then here is the passing of that slip stitch over the stitch that was just knitted, followed by a yarn over. And then we have SK2P, which means we slip the first stitch the same way that we just did. K2 in this case means to knit 2 stitches together, like so, and then pass the slipped stitch over, and that's a SK2P. And then before the end of the bracket, we have a yarn over. And that concludes the first pattern repeat. And then we do that again and again. So let's do this a few more times together. We start with a knit 1, being careful about that yarn over from the previous step. Yarn over, and then SKP yarn over twice. So here's the slip stitch, knit stitch, and then passing that slipped stitch over, and a yarn over. That's once. Slip the stitch, knit the stitch, pass the slip stitch over, followed by a yarn over, and then the SK2P. Slip the stitch, knit 2 stitches together, pass the slipped stitch over, and yarn over. And then a marker there to separate the pattern repeats. And actually, let's take a look here. In each section, you're supposed to have 8 stitches because 8 stitches make up 1 pattern repeat. So let's just do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those yarn overs count as 1 stitch. So at any time, if your stitch count is off, you don't have to count and recount the whole project. You can just look at each section one by one to identify where the problem is and then troubleshoot from there. Okay, let's carry on. We do another pattern repeat starting with a knit 1, yarn over, SKP. So here's an S, here's the K, and then here's the P. And the yarn over. Be careful about those yarn over. Don't forget those yarn overs because they count as a stitch. And I have a lot of people emailing me about stitch counts. They're off, and chances are they probably forgot a yarn over here and there. But of course, it could be other issues too. But I would think that that's the most obvious mistake. It's the easiest to make. Here is the second SKP. So S, K, and P with the yarn over, and then the SK2P. Here's the S, and here's the K2, which in this case means knit 2 together, and the P, which means pass slip stitch over, and then a yarn over. And then put in your main marker if you haven't done so. Okay, I have just finished my main body here and I am at the edge marker. So I am going to slide that and then I'm going to move on from the bracket instructions, which tells me to knit 1, yarn over, S, K, P, and I do that 3 times, and that means yarn over, S, K, P. That was the second time, and I do it one more time, yarn over, S, K, P. And then I come to the border marker, which tells me I have 10 stitches left, and all I have to do is knit to the end of the row. And that is the end of row 1. And now let's talk a little bit about row 2. Row 2 and all even rows in this project through row 12 are the same. What we're going to do is to knit the border stitches at the beginning and at the end of the work, and then the stuff in the middle we're going to purl. Now, to be clear, just like the odd rows, the start of the even row, you're also going to slip the first stitch if that's what you have started doing, and you slip it the same way. So that means if you're following the pattern, you're going to slip the first stitch, knit to the border marker, slip marker, switch to purling, and you purl all the way to the other border marker, and that is your cue to switch back to knitting, and you're going to knit all the way to the end of the row. Why don't you do that and then catch up with me when we do row 3. We're at the beginning of row 3. We start by slipping the first stitch and then knitting the following 9. But we don't have to count anymore because we have already put in the border marker. So all we have to do is to knit until we get to that marker. And then we will slip it over and work on the next instruction, which is to knit 2 stitches. And then we're going to slip the edge marker over and start our main body pattern repeat. And for this one, we start with a yarn over, SKP 3 times. So here's the yarn over, here's the S, here's the K, and here is the P. That's once. Yarn over, S, K, P, second time. Yarn over, S, K, P, the third time. Following that, we are going to knit 2, and that's the end of the first pattern repeat. And you can see that because that's the end of the bracket, and the instruction in the pattern says to do that 19 times. So that's my first time, and then we do it again and again. So here's the second pattern repeat. Yarn over, S, K, P, yarn over, S, K, P, yarn over, S, K, P. And then we end that pattern repeat with a knit 2, slide the main marker over, and start again. Yarn over, S, K, P 3 times. So that's the first time. And here is, hold on. So organize my thing here. Yarn over, S, K, P. Yarn over, S, K, P. And I should end with 2 stitches before the marker. And now, because I had a little hiccup at the beginning, I want to be safe. Let's just go back and count my stitches. I should have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's good. If I had forgotten to do a yarn over at the beginning, for example, and then I only have 7, then I know something went wrong. Then I can tink back or undo these knitting. It's only, 7 stitches, and then I can fix whatever that needed correction. So having all these markers in place really, really helps. So let's continue on. Yarn over, S, K, P. Yarn over, S, K, P. Yarn over, S, K, P. And then knit 2. If you have got this already, just go ahead and skip to the next section, the beginning of row 5, and we can do that together. Otherwise, stay with me and then we'll do one more in my case, in which case you can just pause the video until you get to the edge marker, and then we'll do it together. Yarn over, S, K, P. Yarn over, S, K, P, and then 2 stitches to knit. Okay, so this is the point where you may want to pause until you get to the edge marker. And we are going to slip that edge marker and continue on with the remaining instructions for the row, which is yarn over, SKP 3 times, followed by a knit 1. So that's my yarn over, S, K, P 1 time, yarn over, S, K, P a second time, and yarn over, S, K, P a third time, and a knit 1. And then I get to my border marker, slip that guy over, and then knit to the end of the row, which again should have 10 stitches. Go ahead and work row 4 when you're done with row 3, and I will meet you back here for row 5. Here we are at the beginning of row 5. We start by slipping the first stitch and knitting the following 9 stitches, or to the first marker. You know the drill by now. When we get there, we slip that border marker, or BM. And I want to point out something while we're doing this. In between the first border marker and the first edge stitch, there should most of the time have 2 stitches in there. So here are the 2 stitches that we're going to knit. And then we are going to slip that edge marker over and start our pattern repeat for row 5, which begins with a knit 1, And then in parentheses, it says yarn over SKP 2x. So we'll repeat that instruction twice. So yarn over SKP once, yarn over SKP twice. And then 3 stitches should remain until the next marker. So here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, and thankfully here is the marker. So we repeat that set of instructions until we get to the edge marker, but let's just do a few together. Knit 1 is how we start this pattern repeat, followed by yarn over SKP twice. So yarn over SKP once, yarn over SKP twice, and then lastly 3 stitches knitted individually. Slip marker, start with a knit 1, and then yarn over SKP twice, and here I've done the first one, yarn over SKP the second time, left with 3 knit stitches. And to repeat, each of these main body sections should have 8 stitches. With the beginning, hold on one second. So here, knit 1, yarn over SKP. With the beginning, the edge, between the edge, the border and the edge stitches, you should have 2. The main part, you should have 8. Yarn over SKP. And then when we get to the other edge stitch, there should be another count, and I'll point that out when we get there. 1, 2, 3. So I was trying to talk and count at the same time. I wonder if I did it correctly. So let's do a check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I'm good. So let's continue on. And I have one more pattern repeat to go. Yarn over, slip, knit, and pass the slip stitch over. So that was my second time, and now I have 3 stitches. Go ahead and pause it if you need some time before you get to the edge marker, which surely you do, because I'm doing way less repetition than you are if you're doing the blanket. So here is the edge marker. I'm slipping it. Now between this edge marker and this border marker towards the end of the row, you should have 7 stitches. And for these 7 stitches, the instruction says to knit 1 and then yarn over SKP twice, followed by knit 2. So let's do that. Knit 1, yarn over SKP once, yarn over SKP twice, and then the final knit 2. And then we get to the border marker, slip that over, and knit across to the end of the row. Same deal, finish this row, go ahead and do row 6, and I'll meet you back here for row 7. Row 7, here we go. Slip the first stitch, knit the following 9 all the way to the border marker. Slip the border marker, and then it says to knit 2, and that gets me to the edge marker. And then we begin the pattern repeat for row 7, which is knit 2, yarn over, SKP, knit 4. Knit 2, yarn over, SKP, so here's the S, here's the K, here's the P, and knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip marker, your main one, and then we repeat. Knit 2, yarn over, slip, knit, pass the slip stitch over, and knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip marker, start over, knit 2, yarn over, slip, knit, pass the stitch over, and then knit 4. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, starting with knit 2 stitches, yarn over, slip, knit, pass the slip stitch over, and then knit 4. And for me is the last one, knit 2 stitches, yarn over. I doubted myself for a second as I did a quick count. Knit 2, yarn over, and then S, K, P, and then knit 4. 2, 3, 4, and then this is the point where you hit pause, or we can just continue on. Here's my edge marker. You see how easy it is to identify where you are in the pattern by having these last two, the first two and the last two markers different than the body ones. So I got to the golden ring, so I know that's my edge. And then I'm going to follow the next part of the instructions, which is to knit 2, yarn over, SKP. So here's the S, here's the K, and here's the P. And then I'm going to knit the final 3 stitches. And to reiterate, there should be 7 stitches between the edge stitch and the border stitch towards the end of the row. And then slip the border marker over and knit the final 10 stitches. You know what I'm going to say. Finish this row, finish the following row, which is row 8, and then I'll meet you back here for row 9. Here we are on to row 9. Same as the previous rows. We're going to start with the slip. 1, knit 9 until we get to the border. And we're coming to that border stitch marker. Slip that, and we should have 2 stitches here between the beginning border marker and the beginning edge marker, and we just knit those 2 guys. Slip the edge marker. So we start with a knit 2 together, and then yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and then an S, K, P, ending with 3 knit stitches. So here's 1, 2, and 3. And then here's that main marker, slip that over, and then we start over with knit 2 together, yarn over, and then knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Knit 2 stitches, and then, I skipped a step, I think. Knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. Sorry about that. And then we're going to go on to the S, the K, and the P, and then knit 3 stitches. Here we are. We're back on track. Okay, next pattern repeat. Knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, S, K, and the P, and knit 3 stitches. When we get to the marker, slip it, another pattern repeat, knit 2 together, yarn over, then knit 1, yarn over, S, K, P, and then knit 3 stitches. Slip, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and then S, K, P, 3 stitches at the end to knit individually. And then this is where you hit pause. We're going to go on here, edge marker, slip it over, and you should have 7 in here. So we're going to start with knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and an S, K, P, but a knit 2 here. And then we get to the border marker, and we will knit to the end of the row. And this is the last time I'm going to have to say this. Finish row 9, proceed to row 10, and I will meet you back here for row 11, which is our final row, odd row of the pattern repeat. Here we are on to row 11 of this pattern, and we're going to start per usual, slip 1, knit 9 to the border marker. Now this row, the manipulation of the marker is going to be a little bit finicky, but we will do them together. That's my knit 9, and then I slip the border marker over, and then the next part says to knit 1, knit 2 together. Now you know by now that there should be 2 stitches in between the border marker and the edge marker at the beginning of the row. How are you going to be able to do 3 stitches? Because knit 1 is 1 and the knit 2 together is actually 2 stitches when there are only 2 stitches here. So let's do this together. First we do the knit 1. Now comes the knit 2 together. Here's the first stitch, and then here's the second stitch that we're going to combine, but we got a marker in between. What we have to do is to slip the next stitch over to the right needle, remove the marker temporarily so we can move the next stitch over to the right side, put that marker back onto the left needle, and then put those 2 slip stitches back onto the left needle, and now we can do the knit 2 together. Back to having 2 stitches between the border and the edge. All right, and now we start the main pattern repeat, and we're going to have to manipulate those markers for the entire row. So let's do that together. To start, we're going to do a yarn over, knit 1, and now we have a parentheses. We're going to do yarn over SKP twice. So here's yarn over SKP 1 time, yarn over SKP a second time, and then knit 1, and then knit 2 together. So we have the same issue. Here's only 1 stitch and then the marker. So we have to slip the final stitch of this section over, remove the marker, slip the other stitch to the right needle temporarily, put that marker back onto the left needle, and then put those 2 stitches back onto the left needle. And now we have 2 stitches together without the interference of the marker. And we're going to finish that pattern repeat with a knit 2 together. And that's it. Let's continue on. Slip the marker, yarn over, knit one, and then yarn over SKP twice. So that's my, oops. Okay, yarn over, knit one, and then yarn over, and the SKP. So that's my S, this is my K, and this is my P. And I do that again, yarn over, S, K, P. And then I do a knit one, and then the switcheroo. So the switcheroo, slip it to the right needle, remove the left the marker, slip the next stitch on the left needle to the right, put the marker back onto the left needle, and then put the 2 slip stitches back onto the left needle so we can knit them together to finish that pattern repeat. And we should still have 10 stitches, 8 stitches by the way, so let's prove it. Here's the marker, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the marker. Let's continue on. Yarn over, knit one, yarn over, S, K, P, yarn over, S, K, P, knit one, and then knit 2 together, but let's finagle. Put the marker back, move these 2 stitches back, and knit those 2 stitches together. Slip marker and repeat. Yarn over, knit one, yarn over, S, K, P. I got a knot in here, hold on. Here we go. And then a yarn over, S, K, P, knit one, and then slip it, remove it, slip the other one, replace the marker, and then slip those guys back to knit them together. Done. And then for me, this is the last main body pattern repeat. S, K, P, yarn over, S, K, P. Here we are, and then knit one, and one more time. So slip it, and this is my edge marker. That's how I knew I only had one more time, one more repeat of the main body, but I still have to do the same finagling and knit those guys together. Done. And now hit pause, maybe not. Slip the edge marker over and then follow through, which is yarn over, knit one, yarn over, S, K, P twice. So that was my first time. And then yarn over, S, K, P my second time, and then knit one. And then you should get to your border marker, slip that guy over, and knit to the end. So finish row 11 and then do row 12. And once you're done with row 12, you repeat these 12 rows over and over again. You do that 18 more times for a total of 19 times if you are following my pattern exactly. But if you want to make it longer, shorter, then you just repeat however many times until you get to the length that you want. And then after that, you will do the border like you did the beginning, which wasn't part of this tutorial because, you know, this tutorial expected you to know the basics of knitting. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to make this project in the first place. So the beginning and the end is the same, which is the garter border, for which you knit every row. The front and the back, or the right side and the wrong side is done the same way. So this, my friend, is how you make the race lace. Thank you for knitting it. And if you enjoy this video or find it helpful in the making of your project, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. My handle is Yellow Cayenne. And I will see you in another video. Thank you.